Topic 4 of the SCR program examines the policy, governance, and cultural frameworks that support the global transition towards sustainability and climate risk integration. The topic explains how governments, regulators, corporations, and financial institutions have increasingly incorporated sustainability considerations into strategic planning and regulatory systems. It highlights that climate change is not solely an environmental issue but also a policy, economic, and governance challenge requiring coordinated international and institutional responses. The program provides candidates with a broad understanding of how climate-related policies and governance structures influence corporate behavior, financial markets, risk management practices, and long-term economic transformation worldwide. A major focus of the topic is the evolution of international climate policy and global cooperation efforts. The SCR program reviews the history of climate negotiations and major agreements designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support sustainable development. Candidates study the structure, obligations, and outcomes of key frameworks such as the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. The topic emphasizes that the Paris Agreement introduced a more flexible, nationally determined contribution approach that encourages countries to establish and strengthen their own climate commitments over time. Understanding these agreements helps professionals evaluate global climate policy trends and emerging regulatory expectations. The program also explores global emissions patterns and the differing responsibilities of countries and regions in addressing climate change. Developed and developing economies often face different challenges related to industrialization, energy dependence, economic growth, and climate vulnerability. The topic examines how historical emissions, economic capacity, and social priorities influence climate negotiations and policy implementation. By understanding the relative scale of emissions across regions, candidates can better appreciate the complexities of international climate governance and the importance of balancing environmental objectives with economic development and social equity considerations within global sustainability frameworks. Carbon pricing policies are another important area covered in Topic 4. The SCR program explains how governments use mechanisms such as carbon taxes and emissions trading systems to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by assigning economic costs to carbon-intensive activities. Carbon pricing encourages organizations to improve efficiency, invest in cleaner technologies, and transition toward lower-emission business models. The program discusses both the benefits and limitations of these approaches, including implementation challenges, competitiveness concerns, and political resistance. Candidates learn how carbon pricing influences investment decisions, operational strategies, and the broader transition toward a sustainable and low-carbon economy. The topic also addresses sector-specific climate policies and regulatory frameworks affecting industries such as transportation, energy generation, manufacturing, and finance. Governments increasingly establish standards and incentives to accelerate renewable energy adoption, reduce emissions, and improve environmental performance across sectors. The SCR program highlights how these policies influence market dynamics, technology adoption, and corporate investment strategies. Financial institutions must also adapt to evolving disclosure standards and supervisory expectations related to climate risk management. These developments demonstrate how sustainability and climate considerations are becoming integrated into mainstream economic policy and corporate governance structures globally. An important component of Topic 4 is greenhouse gas accounting and emissions reporting. Candidates learn to differentiate between Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 emissions originate directly from organizational operations, Scope 2 emissions arise from purchased energy consumption, and Scope 3 emissions involve indirect emissions across value chains and supply networks. The program emphasizes the challenges associated with measuring and reporting Scope 3 emissions due to data complexity and limited transparency. Accurate emissions accounting is increasingly essential for regulatory compliance, sustainability reporting, climate target setting, and investor evaluation of corporate climate performance. The SCR program further examines private sector sustainability frameworks, green taxonomies, and the growing role of central banks and financial supervisors in climate governance. Green taxonomies help classify environmentally sustainable activities and guide investment flows toward climate-supportive sectors. The program discusses how financial regulators increasingly incorporate climate risk into supervisory practices to strengthen financial system resilience. Candidates also study important climate-related initiatives and organizational groupings that promote sustainable finance and disclosure standards. These governance developments reflect the expanding role of the financial sector in supporting climate transition efforts, while managing emerging environmental and systemic risks. The topic concludes by exploring nature-related risks, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem degradation as critical sustainability challenges connected to climate change. Human activities can significantly affect biodiversity, ecosystem services, and natural resource availability, creating environmental and financial consequences for organizations and economies. The SCR program emphasizes that climate and nature risks are increasingly interconnected and require integrated policy and governance responses. By understanding international agreements, emissions frameworks, carbon pricing systems, sustainability regulations, and biodiversity considerations, candidates develop the knowledge needed to navigate the evolving landscape of climate governance, sustainable finance, and organizational risk management in a rapidly changing global economy.